Yes. I didn't see where they ended up in the, on the bracket, but
It was already.
They got 7 seed.
7 seed.
They drew DeSmith. That's all right. They're
Hey, they made it.
Second round.
Okay, one more game.
Second round will be tough for them too. If Smith gets them in the second round, look like they would play, either a 3 seed, maybe, or 4 seed.
6 seed.
One loss is all.
Oops. I haven't seen.
It looks like, I don't think they're gonna get a day off.
All right. I'd like to welcome everybody. It's the Police 911 Fire Committee. It's October 6th. Present today, we have,
It's March, Joe.
March, I'm sorry, yeah. I got a contact tore off in my eye and I'm hurting right now. Bright lights hurt, everything does. Present today, we have Councilman Sprinkle and Councilman Clunt, appointed officials, City Attorney Paul Jensen, and the Public Safety Commissioner Justin Day. Also present, I believe, will Mark be joining us today?
Not this morning.
Not this morning. 911 Administrator Andrea Potacek, and we have the Fire Chief, the newly elected Fire Chief, Jason Orrell, along with Zane Hamill here at the meeting. And Zane, you're the Secretary, I believe, correct?
Treasurer.
Treasurer. That's more important anyhow. As always, I'll turn it over to the Public Safety Commissioner to start this one off, and we'll work through pretty light itinerary here.
Okay, so just to get started in the police department, they continue to work on getting everything moved over into the new building. It's kind of going step by step, move one room, clean it, get it loaded up into the other building there. So they've been transitioning over to there, which means there's been some transition going on in the where the police department formerly was, getting other people moved around and getting those spaces reutilized in a little bit better operational way. Then about the only other thing we have on that would kind of be the report. As far as speed enforcement went, we had 22 stops in the last 2 weeks for speed enforcement. Of those, 10 were citations, 12 of those were warnings. Then we did have other various traffic stops were made. Had another 8 of those. Those can be for, one headlight, tail lights out, something like that.
Stop signs?
No, there wasn't any stop signs.
No, but that would fall.
Yes, yeah, that would fall in the other ones. Then we did have a recovery of 1 stolen vehicle. There were 2 DUIs, 1 alcohol-related, 1 drug-related. Then domestics, over the last 2 weeks, we had 5 domestic violence calls to response there. One of those being an aggravated assault. 3 separate fraud cases that the PD is currently working on. We had 3 removal of unwanted persons, 3 harassment calls that we went to and took care of. And then the big one was assisting the public, and that can be in a variety of different ways, but we had 29 calls for assisting the public, whether that is, a lift assist to the elderly, to various business alarms going off, to that can kind of be a lot of different things. So that's kind of the highlights and lowlights of what they've been dealing with the last 2 weeks. Any questions? Okay, if not, then I will turn it over to the PSAP Administrator, Andrea.
Okay, so I'm going to try to give you an update on House Bill 1092. As you can see from my spread here, got a lot going on. It's got my head spinning a little bit. It's the first time that I've had to track a bill like this from start to finish. There's been a lot more activity in the last few days than I was prepared for. So last week, the Senate finally voted on the House bill. It did pass the Senate with quite a few significant amendments. We started out as House Bill 1092, and when it passed the Senate, we were House Bill 1092E, I believe. So the $2 is still on the bill when it made it through the Senate. Somebody tried to amend that out and make it $1.50, but it did get back through at $2. They added a new section, which I think we've talked about that before. It's basically just reporting to a legislative committee, calls for service, operational budget, where the surcharge money is going, the area we dispatch for, hours of operation, things like that. Those are already things that we report to the state. It's just never been to a legislative committee before. It's just always been to DPS. They added another section, a third section to the bill before it passed. This one is what I'm still learning about. We have a PSAP meeting later on this morning after this meeting, and this is obviously a topic up for discussion. So I'm hoping I learned some more things there. Biggest things that stand out, it seems like it's going to be a lot of things for the 911 Coordination Board to be tracking. Criteria and minimum standards for operating and financing a PSAP, which we kind of already do. We are one of the 11 compliant PSAPs. The thing that concerns me the most about this section is Section 3-2, being the developing plans for implementation for a uniform statewide 911 system covering the entire state, or so much so as is practicable. That's, I don't know what they're leaning towards when they start having that conversation. So I'm hoping I learn more about that particular topic today. Since we left the Senate, obviously went back to the House because that's where it started. So the House had the opportunity to take a look at the amendments. They did not necessarily agree with all of those, so they voted no. At that point, the House voted to set up a conference committee with members from both the Senate and the House. Consisted of Senators Dybert, Hoffman, and Melhoff, as well as Representatives Drury, Fitzgerald, and Bartles. The six of them got together and cleaned up some of the verbiage, detail-wise. Dates was a big one that they went in and adjusted in terms of when reports have to be turned in by. They did also end up extending, thankfully, the expiration date that the Senate put on this bill. It was extended, the Senate voted to expire on June 30th of 25, and the committee changed that date to July 1 of 26. So, yeah, it's not great that there is still an expiration date, but at least the fact that they've extended that gives us a little bit more time to provide them with the data that they're looking for. They didn't have enough time to gather enough information, in my opinion, to make an educated, informed decision on where to go moving forward. So I'm glad that they were willing to extend that out a little bit. Where we go from here, I'm not sure. That's another thing that I'm hoping to learn today. It got voted on after the conference committee changed and made their final amendment. We're officially at G now, which I suppose many others have probably gone farther than that, but still at $2 as of now, and they just made a few changes as far as dates and due dates and expirations and things like that. So we're still moving in the right direction, I do believe, but that's where we're at right now. I guess the committee and all of that all happened yesterday. So this is all brand new, fresh information. Like I said, when we have the PSAP meeting today, I imagine I'll get some more information from that.
That section 3-2 that you said, which way is, the way I read that, is the state gonna look at considering running the 911 program statewide?
So one of the things that we knew was going to be problematic, bringing anything in front of the state at this point, was going to be that in 2012, when they voted to change our surcharge to what it is now, the $1.25, it got brought up at that point that there are too many PSAPs in the state. And maybe some of these little ones that cannot sustain themselves should consider consolidating with some of the others and not have to deal with the financial burden, if you will, that it was putting on those smaller counties. A lot of that did happen since then. At that point in time, there were almost 40 PSAPs in the state, and we're down to, I want to say it's either 24 or 28, and 11 of those are state compliant PSAPs, us being one of those. So that was one of the things, a lot of opposition on this bill was coming from the fact that there is more room for consolidation. Small scale consolidation, if they end up going with the 11 PSAPs that are compliant and sticking with those, fine. I think the bigger push is going to be for the larger PSAPs, i.e. Pennington County, Sioux Falls Metro, Pierre, and potentially Huron. And just consolidating down to those 4. So yes, I do believe they are kind of hinting at a statewide, but they're looking at consolidating down into a smaller number.
That's kind of been the case for the last few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, anytime the topic of money gets brought up regarding the 911 system, that's where it starts leading is, if this is such a financial burden to these PSAPs, then why don't they just let us consolidate? And it's,
For what it's worth, I noticed that the section that Austin was referring to there, that is current law right now, and that's not a change on that section. I'm sorry, paragraph 2 of section 3. Current law has that provision as it exists.
I don't think they ever get to 4. Where do we sit in call volume?
still right in the middle.
Yeah, number 5, number 4,
Yep.
number 6.
Yep. We are the lowest funded by the state and right in the middle in terms of volume
Of the 11 certified.
of the 11 compliant PSAPs, correct?
Four would be tough.
And I've vented to him about it plenty of times, but it's, the state's not saving money. You're still having to provide the equipment. And then if you try to get down to 4, then you're gonna have to look at expanding the facilities that you're putting these PSAPs in, because the number of active councils that you're gonna have going, the staff, it's just shifting the financial responsibility from one place to the next. It's not
You're still gonna have
fixing,
to have a number of staff.
it's not fixing
So
anything.
you're not cutting
Not
it.
saving staff, they're just saving the
Yeah,
system.
exactly. They're just moving it. And then unfortunately, especially for us, they're removing it from rural communities and putting it into the bigger ones that are already growing and not having any population issues and things of that nature. Plus, you start looking at, I know the eastern part of the state, their representatives, they were ones that were very much against. They really want to start looking at consolidation. Metro spent a lot of money building a very nice facility, and they're upset that there are so many PSAPs in that area that could potentially consolidate. But that's one of the things about our PSAP that is a pole, is we get protocol from the agencies we dispatch for, and we follow that. We don't tell them how they're gonna do it. And that's not how they run things, which is a lot of the reasons that the smaller areas are avoiding that, because, you know, when you start getting into the bigger things, they run off a script. So you can't tell them that there's a fire 3 miles south of town, and Justin Day's the landowner, and they're gonna know what that means. You have to be able to give them a physical address, and your responders have to know where that is. It's a different world. And it'll get brought up again at some point as they continue to gather these things, but that's gonna be the biggest pushback that they get from rural areas, is it's different, and you can't always operate that way.
And we've kind of talked about when that time comes, we'll probably be rallying all of the fire departments that we dispatch for, all of the EMS that we dispatch for, as well as the counties and the municipalities that we dispatch for. Because as Andrea alluded to, it's a very different world when we work with our agencies. A lot of those bigger PSAPs know this is what you will do, or go find somebody else. And if they drop her back to 4, that'll really see an effective service for those communities that are served.
Not only that, but it's pulling your employment away from the rural areas.
Yep.
and
Yeah.
Putting it back in the cities.
Yeah,
That's really helping rural America.
Yep.
yeah.
But people who have never lived in rural America don't know the benefits of living in rural America, so
That's
they.
fine if they don't know.
Well, we've kind of all in agreement on that one. I prefer to stay a flyover state.
Oh, yeah, training. You didn't put it on here, so I forgot. Casey's training is going very well. She's picking things up. It's and doing very well. I would say that she's probably getting towards the end of that first phase where she's kind of been given all of the tools, and now the focus is going to shift to application of those things. So things are going really well there. She's doing a great job. Still looking for 2, if you know anybody that needs a job. 2 full-time.
All right. Fire department.
Go to Jason.
Yep, here we go. So we got the quotes for the combi tool that was put on budget for this year. I asked Zane because he is the most knowledgeable person on when it comes to this stuff, and he's ran every one of these. So that way, if there's any questions between anybody, he could answer them. So I didn't have to babble my way through it. I don't know if you guys want to look. It numbered them 1, 2, 3 in order there. 1 is the one we'd like, and then 2, and then 3. We did demo 2 of these,
2 of them.
and then you
The third-
demoed the 3rd one.
Yeah, we demoed obviously the one that we would like to purchase.
You want to come up here? No, sure.
And 2 of them we did in-house down here at the fire hall as a training exercise, and they come in. So we ran them all through the loops. And then the 3rd one, I believe, is the one you did out in Mission when you was doing.
Yeah, I've
that.
seen those. Actually, I've used that 3rd one, the TNT tools. I've used them twice in different classes. So I'm the only one on the part, well, Blake
But,
did.
yep.
So,
I guess my opinion, the 3rd one is the cheapest by a long ways, and that should, in our eyes, or my eyes, in any business, that kind of throws a red flag.
the one time I used that tool in a class, at the end of the day, there was smoke rolling out of the pump and the motor. And I don't know if that was a maintenance issue with the department that had it, or if it's just that kind of tool, I don't know. The other tool, the most expensive quote, the Homatro tools, they're really nice, but their dealer network changed in the state. I don't know if there's a servicing dealer in South Dakota now. The guy I got I actually had to go to directly to the company to get that quote, because the former dealer that, when we had demoed him, had brought him down, he sent me a message back and said, well, we're not gonna be a dealer in like 6 weeks. So that just changed here. And then, the one that's the middle bid, the Genesis one, they have the dealer network, and, I don't know, that's the one that, from all the ones we've tested, that everybody seems to think's the best one right now. I mean, you can argue back and forth on different, there's different numbers and different capabilities, and everybody wants theirs to look the best, but.
And I believe, then you guys can speak to this far better than I can, but with the most expensive quoted one, the one that you had alluded to with the network, the dealer network going, but that has its own issues as far as battery placement.
Didn't that one have the battery placement awkward?
The more expensive one is a proprietary battery, which they of course think is great because it's theirs. But the other two use standard Milwaukee tool batteries that you can go over here to Runnings or Ace and buy. And I think that has its own advantages. And both of those tools, they've worked with Milwaukee. The company has worked with the tool manufacturers to make them compatible. It isn't just a adapter that they threw together so that Milwaukee tool or the batteries will work on that tool. They have actually worked back and forth with Milwaukee engineers to make sure that they're good. And the Genesis tool, actually Rapid City Fire uses them, and I know somebody on the Rapid City Fire Department, and I contacted him to see what those guys thought about it. And it'd been 2 years ago now that they replaced all their tools with that brand, with that line, and they're very satisfied with them.
And kind of like you and I were talking, Jason, when you guys were testing it, if the battery goes dead, you're kind of in trouble.
Yeah.
With
that Homatro, yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
it's, I think to replace, the last number I heard, to get a new Homatro battery, that proprietary battery, is like $600.
And you gotta wait.
Yeah, and you gotta wait, and I know during some supply chain issues, they just flat weren't available. They just weren't there. So,
Everything's battery operated now these days.
yeah.
It just,
Which one are we talking about that was the least expensive that you're?
The TNT tool, it's on paper, they all look very similar. You can get them in your hands and actually use them, they're a little different.
The reason I ask is, under the wonderful laws of South Dakota, what we need to look at is you begin with the concept that says you're presuming going to go with the lowest bid. But it's also called the lowest responsible bid, which means that if we have some factual reasons why we choose to not go with the lowest one, as long as we can put those points down on paper for why we choose something other than the lowest, then council has the ability to do that.
Absolutely. I can give you two other reasons to not go with the lowest bid. There are accessories available for this Genesis tool that I asked specifically for on the least expensive one. They're not available.
Not available.
there's no building, so with any tool, take it for even your homeowner tools, you buy DeWalt or Milwaukee, say you'd buy Milwaukee, you can build off, build your own little kit.
Sure.
This is kind of a start to, the tools we have down there now are hydraulic, you can power them into a pump or you plug them into a pickup and they're heavy, and they're 20 years old. I mean, this is the start of building off of doing a set. I mean, it might take 5-10 years, but, with the one we picked, they have options, they have all the bells and whistles to add to and build what we would technically down the road would need. With the cheapest one, there is not much there for
Yeah, I asked,
For
I asked,
expansion?
I asked.
For expansion, there's a good word.
The one accessory isn't even available on the more expensive tool. They've engineered, that Genesis company has engineered that RAM accessory, and they're the only one that I found that has it.
Batteries and that for the Milwaukee, you can get them
And then
or whatever.
in town, you know, you can get a battery anywhere, it's, the service, you know, I mean, we all know how service is if you have to go 2 states over or 3 states over or.
I think from what I've heard about what we call the cheapest quote, is if it came down to having to take the cheapest quote, I think the fire department would just not even buy it.
Prefer not to.
If that's what they were forced to. I mean, it's
I
just
think
real-
I'd go to,
not-
I think I'd go to try to find I mean, there are other companies. I mean, I could have brought, there's 10.
But you've complied here with city policy by getting 3 competitive quotes. And they look like good comparison quotes. My only suggestion would be maybe you guys get 10 minutes with Justin to document down the reasons why the recommendation is number 2 rather than number 1. Or, I'm sorry, number 3, I guess is the lowest. But as long as we put that in our file, then that'll justify if
Justify.
council goes along with your thought on that.
Yeah, we can do that.
I think you kind of, when you talk to Jason,
Yeah.
kind of have most of it, just get it down on paper.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we'll put it down on paper and then, because then leading the other 2 that were remaining, you guys did go with the lowest of the other 2 that you
Yeah,
felt did
yeah,
the
it is the
job.
lowest of the other 2.
Yeah, so, not the lowest of the 3, but the lowest of the 2 that you guys felt could do the job
Right.
needed.
I mean, you could draw comparisons with firearms for the police
Yeah.
department. I mean,
Yep,
That way, when we take this to council.
Yep.
Justin, you'll be able to kind of go through the documentation and show the other 4 members on council.
Yep.
Why
And we will-
the recommendation is what it is.
we will have the quote sheet filled out with all the documentation and the reasoning and everything when it does go
Yep.
before council, so.
Very good.
Yep.
Thanks.
Jody, I think this is real similar situation to what we just did for the sewer department on the bit that eats the roots in their sewer line.
The truck, H,
No, the actual.
Oh,
bit.
that boring tool.
They said works, but it's way too slow, it's not
Right.
efficient, it's blah, blah, blah. Same situation. I mean, it's-
That's all I have unless you guys have some questions. I mean, just to bring up to speed since it's March, since I took the fire chief position, James O'Connor's still assistant chief, and then Blake Nielsen is assistant chief also. I would like, just like Zane coming up, eventually bring them guys up. So if I'm not available, they're not thrown into the not knowing what's going on. And that way, everybody's kind of on the same page. That way, Andrea or Justin can reach out to one of them if I'm ever get to go on my month-long Jamaican vacation or something like that. But, yeah, just so they're on the same page. And Zane's, I know he's the treasurer, but we all lean on him a lot. And that's why he's here today, because he's, on this stuff, he's very knowledgeable. And I'm glad because he's able to answer a lot of questions.
And just for council's information also, the top 2 quotes do fit within the budgeted amount that was given to the fire department. So everything is within budgetary parameters as well as following the 3 quotes, and they did a good job.
Other than that, I think unless you got any questions.
I have one question, I'm just looking at the budget sheet. For the fire department, what are we paying for that comes out of the consultant line?
That was done with I think everybody who kind of helps work on the trucks and stuff that's down there, that is what comes out of that consultant line. I think it's $300 a month is what, yeah, what you guys give to those guys, so that's what comes out of there.
I was thinking that was under the repairs and maintenance.
I do think the consultants are the cleaning fee.
Repairs and maintenance might be Kathy, $200 a month.
I think
Is that
that's,
what you, is that what you give her for?
Yeah, I
For the
think so.
janitorial down
And
there?
then I bet the maintenance is $300 a month.
Yeah, that's what, that's
So
what
that's
it's,
probably consultants is the maintenance, because it'd be, they would have paid March, January, February, March would be 900, and then Kathy would be 600 for cleaning.
Because
200 a
repairs and
month.
maintenance is always like somebody else coming in, and then the consultant, that's what they decided to stick it under, since it's you guys in-house.
Consultant
That wouldn't
in-house.
fit under repairs and maintenance, so that's kind of where.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Well,
you're closer.
Gotcha. All right.
That will conclude today's official meeting. Now we can go back and talk Gregory basketball.